Welcome to another G-Force Influencer interview. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Chase. Britnie Chase, how are you doing today?
No complaints, really, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, I am so excited to have you on the show. I'm going to give you guys a little background on this guy. I met him on his podcast, which is an incredible podcast called Ever Forward. I recommend you all check it out. He is known as a health and fitness coach, a motivator and mentor, an entrepreneur. He holds credentials as an ACE certified health coach and TRX certified suspension trainer. In addition to his fitness credentials and business ventures, living a life of wellness has been part of him since he was young. After 6 years of active duty, he was medically discharged from the military due to a string of injuries that required him to have bilateral reconstructive hip surgeries. After learning how to walk again twice, exercise as medicine and healthy lifestyle modifications became his passion. He not only lives by the creed ever forward, but also instills this in his clients. He strives to show his clients how to take control of their lives through bettering their physical and mental toughness. Welcome, Chase Tuning. I am so happy to have you today.
Brittany, thank you for having me on. It's awesome. I love being on the other side of the microphone, as I call it. We had such a great time on my show. It's an honor to be now here on yours.
Well, thanks for being a force for good and using your life. So I've been watching you ever since you interviewed me, and you are relentless. You are really going after it. You're constantly sharing how we can level up our health, how we can level up our fitness. You throw in mindset, you throw in business, you throw in new products. Like, you're really fascinating to watch. So I want to know, how in the world did you get started as a health coach and mentor?
Yeah, really good question. And I guess the origin is really kind of one of the lowest points of my life, during a time when a lot of things kind of came to a head in my life. And I lost my father to a terminal illness and really struggled with that loss. He was my best friend, a mentor, someone that really kind of set me on the path for the military and just the future as a young man. And so I had some issues there with my mental health and not really fully going through the grieving process. And then physically, I became very broken during my time in the military. I wound up having to, I got pulled from my unit, learned how to walk again twice, just through major surgeries due to some injuries to my back and my hamstrings and my hips. I had basically from about the top of my glute down to the top of my knee, just big, cut me open, remove my femur, reconstruction, reshaping, put back in, cleaning up some of the joints, and then hardware added to kind of keep everything back in place. And then the Army, Uncle Sam kind of sent me on my way because I became non-deployable. I was no longer fit to be a soldier. And so then I through that process of rehabilitation, about 1.5 years, 2 years almost, I just knew that while things were different now, it wasn't the end of the road for me. I didn't want to choose it to be the end of the road. So I began to kind of study the human body and exercise and nutrition and health and wellness and all of these things to help me personally. And I wound up going to school for it, wound up falling in love with it as a job, as a career. And it's what I've been doing ever since I got out of the Army, basically in 2009.
Wow, I didn't know your story, but that's so applicable to today. People are losing their jobs. People are thinking it's the end of the road for them. We don't know when this pandemic is going to end. We don't know when life will ever go back to normal. We all believe it will, but when you're having the thoughts and the realizations that this is the end of the road, what advice do you have that can help people get through this period of time?
The more we focus on what we don't have or what we can't do, we will never have anything or do anything, I think, because that in and of itself is like a cycle for a habit, for an outlook, for a mindset that doesn't serve me, doesn't serve you, and I'd be willing to bet doesn't serve anybody who adopts that. So if we can just focus, and this is what I did, I had to really focus on what I did have going well in my life and what I could do. And I do credit that a lot to where I was at the time, because when I was going through all of this, all of my surgeries and just in and out of the hospital and in and out of rehab and just, on quarters and hobbling around on my cane or in the wheelchair. There were a lot of other people around me in this medical hold unit that didn't have arms or legs or had third-degree burns from head to toe. And they had a better perspective. They were smiling and they were beyond what I was going through. And in my mind, they had it way worse than me. So I do give a lot of credit to that environment of probably saving me from that slippery slope of my career is over. My job that I wanted to be a soldier for 20 years and retire. All of these woe is me things. I didn't really allow that to step in because there were so many people around me who have it worse.
I love that. It can be so consuming to just say, here's all the things that I lost. The things that I lost. And I love that you had that perspective awakening. And that's one of the many reasons I do disaster relief work is I constantly am trying to keep myself in an environment to keep the big picture in mind. I even named my company Ariel just as a reminder. Literally every time I see the word Ariel, it's like big picture, keep the big picture in mind. This has never been about you. And I'd go do these different disaster relief work, and I see people who've lost everything, every single thing, including family members, and they find something to smile about. They find something to be grateful for. They find something to just give to someone else. And I'm just like, humans are good. And I remember that my life can be used to make somebody else's day a little better. And it's really cool that the people you were around gave you that perspective. The name of your podcast is Ever Forward. Where did that come from? And what does that mean?
Ever Forward, yeah, it is the name of the show, Ever Forward Radio. My coaching and consulting business is Ever Forward Coach. Ever Forward, it's woven into a lot of different things in my professional life, my personal life. I got a tattoo on my bicep here. It's been my license plate for 15 years,
Branding.
14, 15 years. And, my brother even took it and ran with it as well. He has an apparel company, Ever Forward Apparel. And so all of us, we all have these unique little things that we've kind of embodied. And it came from the original example of someone has it worse. I was just talking about, my time in the military and surgeries. Like I said, my dad, he was a big reason why I went into the military. We have a long family history of military service. And I really wanted to be a part of that legacy. And so I enlisted. I was still 17, actually. I was just about to turn 18 out of high school. Yeah. And a few months later, I had just gotten to my first duty station, and we found out that my dad was diagnosed terminal. He was given this death sentence, really, of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and they didn't know how long or how short. And it completely rocked my world. It made me question everything. I even tried to get out of the military through a hardship clause and just go back home and be there and support and just have those remaining days with him. And a dying man, literally his last few days, he was able to walk and talk, got on a plane, flew out to where I was stationed in Northern California at the time, and spent about 4 days just being with his son, convincing this young soldier to not stop the beginning of his life just because his was ending. It's a very, very, very cruel disease. You become just a prisoner in your body. Your muscles just eat away. Your entire body just eats away. And of what we know of it, it doesn't affect the mind. So it's cruel in the sense that they're aware of all this. They're very alert and aware and just normal up here. But eventually they wither away and die. So with his last few days, he was able to walk and talk. He convinced me to stay the course. He convinced me that, look, yeah, it may not be ideal for me right here, right now, but you have so much to live for. And he taught me to live a life ever forward. He finally, these two words clicked, and he proved to me, he showed to me what those two words meant. And this was a phrase that he had said his entire life. My entire life growing up, all of us, it was ever forward, ever forward, ever forward. And so it was just one of those things that you think your parents say just to be a good parent, or like instill some sense in your, some morals. And we just kind of, okay, cool, Dad, Everforward, it's a good phrase, whatever. But then it meant something. And we learned what that meant through that hardship. And fast forward about 10 years later, after that loss, we just decided to truly embody it and share it with the world, because it was also part of our healing process to kind of just work through it out loud. And we introduced Everforward as this thing.
What are the blessings in disguise? What are the shifts you're seeing and new opportunities you're seeing as the whole world, not one country, not a hurricane hit, one little island or one spot, like the whole world is going through the same thing? What are the new opportunities or blessings in disguise that you're seeing right now?
They're there. I'll flat out just say they are there. And anyone who thinks otherwise, you probably just aren't looking, or you aren't looking hard enough, or you don't have the right people around you. There are a lot of things out there. I'll say the obvious. Pretty much every organization now, whether you had an online presence before, you definitely have one now.
Yeah.
Because if you want to survive,
yeah.
Exactly. Even if you just want to be treading water for a little bit, you have to have an online presence. So I really do think this is kind of shining a light on a lot of people for just the human connection component, all the way to the other end of the spectrum of business and surviving, if not even thriving. Online presence, online presence, online presence. So I think it's really showing people where maybe they could have done more before, and kind of being able to plug those holes in their business, and just kind of in a way forcing people, hey, you got to get on board technology. You got to get on board with, just the progression of humankind, because if you don't get on board, then you're going to get left behind.
Right.
Not to sound harsh, but I think that's what we're seeing. Absolutely.
What are the opportunities you're seeing? I mean, one of the things I'm understanding and I've done in my life is I've taken the time to level up my health. I'm learning about it. I'm listening to what you're teaching. I'm following other things. Like, I'm taking the time to not only educate, but implement ways that I can level up my health. And I don't think it's just me. I think the world is saying, they're watching who is dying. There are some healthy people without, there are some anomalies.
Sure.
For the most part, who's getting knocked out of the game? And maybe I shouldn't eat as many chips. Maybe I should find a way to get up and get moving. Maybe my priorities have been out of whack and I need to start getting my crap together when it comes to my health, so I don't die over something like the flu. So that's something I'm seeing, which is horrible. It's horrible that it's happening. It's horrible how painful this is. And it's horrible for everybody who's lost anyone that they love. I hate that it's happening, but I think it's an opportunity for those who haven't prioritized it to recognize the importance and live the rest of their life at the next level. What are you seeing in that world?
I think right now, I'm going to say comorbidities, I think is a strong word we're seeing, because yes, sometimes this virus hits people and it's just an unfortunate freak of nature and they become ill, or even worse, they pass. But what I'm seeing so far in the reports is that, yes, COVID-19 is there, but also there are a lot of other comorbidities, a lot of other all-cause mortalities, such as being obese, being morbidly obese, being a smoker, chronic inflammation, poor diet, lack of physical activity. I'm not talking getting out there and working out 8 days a week. I mean, just getting 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day. A lot of other things that I'm not saying if people had these squared away or an equal proportion of each, then they wouldn't have gotten sick or might not pass. But it is within your best interest, and it's prudent to be even aware of these things, that they are in your control. It is within your control to put down the cigarettes. It is within your control to find a smoking cessation class. They're online now. Trust me, they're there.
You're online
it is
now.
It is within your control to do all of these things, to just increase your water, to maintain a normal, consistent night's sleep. If nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this, people watching, listening, sleep. Be hyper diligent, if not even militant, with your sleep. That is the king of my wellness hierarchy, and things that I have seen just the highest ROI in every way possible. About over the last 2 years, sleep for me has become king. And when that gets thrown off, pretty much everything else does immediately or somewhat later. But there are a lot of things that are within our control: sleep, hydration, just quality foods. Honestly, right now, I think a great tool for most people is to begin to kind of just log your calories. This is where, when you don't have consistency, if you don't have structure to your day, look, sometimes you need to just emotionally eat. Look, you're confused. We're uncertain times. We need to just have that cookie, have that piece of pizza, whatever, have that glass of wine, but just incorporate a sense of mindfulness. And I do think a lot of people could probably benefit from apps like MyFitnessPal. That is a great free resource to just log your food. And I'm not saying to try to manipulate calories right now, but just to be mindful of what you actually are eating. Just tracking for the sake of tracking will then get you more aware of what you're eating, what you're not eating. And it kind of just tends to clean itself up over time. But just look, again, comorbidities we're finding I'm not saying they're a cause, and I'm not saying without them you won't get sick, but by reducing them, we do know for a fact you are going to increase your overall health, reduce all-cause mortalities, reduce comorbidities, and just get you in a much better position to thwart off viruses, bacteria, things like that.
I love it. I love that. I think the real, what I'm getting from what you're saying is, if you want to level up in anything in your life, it takes intentionality. It takes awareness. It takes knowing where you are to know how to get where you want to go. And we have so many bad habits that it can be super easy to just recognize why you're not being successful on your diet or this or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You're not even knowing what the heck you're doing, and you don't recognize, oh my gosh, what in the world? Why would I ever think that I would be successful if I don't know why I'm being a failure? So I think that is great advice. If you had 4 things, if you had priorities, so you said sleep is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
What's number 2, 3, and 4, if that's all you could tell somebody to start aligning their health with a better way?
Okay, great question. Absolutely. Again, personally speaking, from what I've experienced and what I've manipulated, variables I've manipulated over the years, but also I'm a certified health coach, BS in exercise science, master's in health promotion. I've been in the health and fitness and wellness industry for about a decade. So if anybody's questioning, why should I listen to you, Chase? Well, there are some letters after my name that might help that. But definitely sleep. After that, hydration. Most people are not getting enough water. Right now, we should even be just reaching for extra glasses of water. I will say, people might ask, well, how much is enough water? At least 1 more than what you're getting now. So yeah, there we go. I don't have my water bottle here. I'm finishing my cold brew, but whatever you're drinking now, get 1 more. Absolutely. Sleep, hydration. After that, I will say just general daily physical activity. If I'm sitting here and I'm just moving around, this is technically burning minute calories. If I'm fidgeting, what ideally I would have taken this standing up, or salsa dancing, air salsa dancing, whatever you need to do. Just anything you can do to incorporate a standing position, moving around, movement in any way, shape, or form is going to contribute in small ways to get you moving, to be burning calories, and just to incorporate more overall bodily systems to engage. Also, daily step count. In an ideal world, I'll tell everybody, look, 10K steps is the minimum. I think a lot of people right now are probably doing that or more. If you have access to a safe path outside, you can walk and cross people, at a safe distance. My step count the past couple of weeks has been between like 14 and 17,000 steps. I've been walking, 5, 6, 7 miles sometimes, because that's really all I can do. Again, going back and looking at what I can do. So sleep, hydration, daily physical activity. And then number 4 is kind of a tie for me in terms of consistent quality calories with a focus on protein, with a focus on micronutrient health. Micronutrient health being things that you're going to get from really any wild and fun, cool colors, fruits, vegetables. If you don't have access or regular access to a grocery store right now to get those in, and also you get micronutrients from plant sources, animal sources, bone marrow, bone-in meats, things like that have fats and lean cuts all together. There's a lot more bioavailability of nutrients there. But I also would recommend probably right now people investing in a quality like greens powder, like a super greens powder. Micronutrient health. These are just fundamental vitamins, minerals, nutrients, tiny little cellular things that help us at the cellular level. in terms of immune system, gut health, sleep, digestion, bloating, a lot of different things. And I say quality is very, very important. I've been using for years now. It's this one called Strong Greens. The supplements company is called BPN, Bear Performance Nutrition. I've been using them for years. They have a Strong Greens for micronutrient vegetable health. It's very citrusy. It's like a lemony, or it's more like lime, or excuse me, lemon. There we go. Use your words, Chase. And they have a Reds, which is a lot more fruits and antioxidants and polyphenols and things like that. I put them together. I think they're great. Also, there's another really popular company called Organifi that's more of like a mint flavor. They're a little bit more pricey. Both are great products, but I personally use and would recommend Strong Greens from BPN.
All right. So you're talking to somebody that wishes she never had to sleep, ever. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this, and you say the S word, and we're like, oh, yeah. No, don't make me. I have been sleeping significantly more, especially since my last show, which I've signed up for now. Oh, see, that just like pre-annoys me. I'm trying.
I'm currently reading this.
I'm trying. So sleep can be associated with laziness. And so I would love to hear, I'm going to read that book. You know I am. But I would love to hear how much sleep, why, how does it affect your everything, in your opinion?
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I think that across the board, every human being can benefit from at least about 8 hours of sleep. It's an old rule of thumb. Now, for me, that has kind of shifted over time. And I see you're hesitant a little bit there. I can perform very well. I can feel very well and get by for a while, about 6.5 hours for me. If I go to bed at the same time. For 6.5 hours for me is conducive if I go to sleep at the same time and I just wake up earlier, not necessarily going to bed later and waking up at the same time, even though I might still be asleep the same 6.5 hours. And this actually is a lot of the content in that book, Why We Sleep. We all have unique circadian rhythms. Our circadian rhythm is like this cycle, which is technically a little bit more than 24 hours. The human circadian rhythm is about 24.2 to 24.5 hours. So everybody kind of varies a little bit. And that's important because every body is different. You, Britnie, are different than me. Your bodily needs, your circadian rhythm needs are different than me. Where you are in the world, the times of day that you wake up, how fast or how soon you get exposure to sunlight, how soon your body begins to develop vitamin D, your hormone balances, how fast your body begins to bring up cortisol again or lower melatonin and vice versa in the evening. Long-winded answer here. I get very excited about sleep, but I'll just say consistency, hands down. So whatever you can do consistently in terms of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, that is really going to be your best friend. That's most realistic for most people. That means longer adherence as well. And it's not so much about the quantity as it is the quality. We want to be getting deep REM cycles. We want to be getting, really, you want non-REM cycles and REM cycles. They're both very important. They do different things. And one way to know if you're getting REM cycles is if you dream. And more importantly is if you remember dreams, not necessarily remembering every detail or remembering the whole dream. Most people can't when you wake up. It's like on the tip of your tongue and you speak it out and it's gone. But if you are aware of the fact that you had a dream or you're remembering a dream, dreams happen predominantly in REM cycle sleep. And so that's a good way to know that your body is going through those cycles of what you need. So if you're not getting that, might be time to look at, maybe I need to get more consistent with my sleep, or looking at some sleep aids, things like that.
Tell me some tools, give me some apps, tell us some resources. You gave us a protein or some greens that are good. Mm-hmm. Tell us some tools or apps that we can look into to better ourselves while we are during this period and beyond. Awesome.
Okay. So I'll kind of continue with the sleep thing. For most people, if you're watching, if you have an iPhone, what you can do to, I'll say, stack the conditions in your favor, because right now we probably are on our phones a lot more, maybe, or we're connecting more. So we're probably getting more screen time. So to that, I would say, and these are all things you can actually learn more about in Why We Sleep. Another great book I recommend on sleep is called Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson. Also an incredible podcast for all health, wellness, fitness. It's called The Model Health Show. But basically, if you don't have a pair of blue light blocking glasses, which I keep right here next to my nightstand. So when I read, I throw these guys on, usually read in the evening, non-prescription, makes me look smart, right? So if you don't have blue light blocking glasses, this will help you for your sleep. It will also help set and reset your circadian rhythm. On your iPhone and I think other smartphones, you can go to what's called night shift mode. It'll basically not fully eliminate, but drastically reduce the amount of blue light coming through that phone. You might notice the screen is very helpful, right? You might notice it gets a little bit of an orangish tint, totally normal. So if you are late night on your phone, you're just doing something that's going to be less harmful to you potentially in the long run. So definitely a couple of hacks there. The micronutrient health with a great greens powder. The app that I mentioned, it's free. It's called MyFitnessPal. It's a great free food tracker. I'm pretty sure it's still the world's largest online database of foods. So you can search for something, you can scan a barcode, you can even make up your own recipes and input information there. Oh, also on smartphones, if you have it on you, if you don't maybe have a wearable like an Apple Watch or like a Whoop, like a physical activity tracker, most smartphones also have pedometers built into them.
Is there a button we can push to get that, or is that an app to track
So
our...
on the iPhone, actually, if you go and just like on your home screen, just swipe down and you want to do a search at the top, just type in health, and there is an innate app on the iPhone. It's the Apple Health icon.
Nice.
Apple Health app, and it actually has a lot of data in there. You can hook up smart devices like a blood glucose monitor, blood pressure. You can even input your caffeine. If you use there you go.
Wow.
If you use it for your alarm to go to bed, it'll actually track your sleep, give you some sleep analysis, track your steps, a lot of cool things. So may not have access to a gym right now, or maybe you're not quite ready for everybody's at-home crazy booty band workout that's going crazy on the internet right now. There is something absolutely you can do, and you can create it by just becoming aware of the tools you have available to you.
Love it. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. This has been great. What advice do you have for listeners on how they can live a life ever forward?
It's funny. That's the question I ask my guests at the end of my shows. To live a life ever forward, I will challenge. Here's a great exercise for everybody. Take one day. And right now, I think this would be a great time passer for everybody going through this pandemic. Take one day and just document everything you do. Not in like an over obsessive compulsive way. Just write down on a piece of paper or a nice journal or notes on your phone. I woke up at this time and I felt this. At this time, I had coffee. At this time, I ate this food. Just document when you are doing what and the feeling, the emotion that you're feeling as well. Do that for one day. The next day, just read it back and just like you will get your next steps on how to move forward.
Ooh, I love that. So so funny you say document everything you're doing. I get a lot of questions on how can you run all the stuff you run? How can you be international? How can you be this effective? And it's because every day I write down every single thing that I do on the hour, who I was with, where I was, but I've never written down how I feel.
There's power in that.
All the way back to August 2013 when I started this, and at 4:00, what I was doing, who I was with, and what the result was, but how I was feeling is amazing. I love that because I've been on a mission of, okay, how can we live an optimized life? But how do you also raise your joy meter? So how can you do both, not just make the most money and have the greatest impact, but it's how can I raise my joy in my activities?
Your fulfillment.
Yeah, my one chance on earth, the one non-renewable resource of time is spent on the things that mean the most to me, are the most optimal, but also give me the greatest feeling, which humans do everything for a feeling, whether we like it or not.
And during a time right now when there may be, for a lot of people, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of varying degrees of stress, imagine the joy, imagine just a change of pace it would be for you if you found something in your day-to-day you were already doing that once you actually paid attention to that feeling associated to it, reinstated some fulfillment, reinstated some hope, reinstated some certainty. I think we all could probably benefit from a little bit more of that right now.
I love it. Well, I have a question that I ask at the end of all of my shows.
Oh, amazing. All right.
Which is, in your opinion, how can people be a force for good right now? during this time?
Especially during this time, I think to be a force for good, you need to be a force for yourself first. And you need to go back to, again, just re-listen to this episode and everything that Britnie is putting out, and just take note of all these things that really truly are within our control that we can do, even if it's just improving your life 1%. I always butcher this quote, but it's from a book I recently read, James Clear's The Atomic Habits. And there's statistical proof of if you improve your life by 1% each day over the course of a year, your entire life as a whole has leveled up. I think it's like 33 something percent. Whereas if you don't, there's an actual declination. And so it's very interesting. Yeah, it's science. So what I'll say is that in order to be a force for good, we need to be a force for ourselves first. We need to be aware of what we're doing and how we're showing up for ourselves and how we're optimizing our own day, our thoughts, our emotions, our food, our everything, because that is the catalyst. That is the gateway drug to how you will then do everything else. That is the slippery slope to building new relationships, building more meaningful relationships, to finding that passion project that turns into a side hustle that maybe launches a career, or maybe just, helps build the job that you have now. So it really does begin with yourself. It's you have to be that drop in the pond to ripple out.
Love it all. Is there any parting quote that the listeners on this video should know?
And I always have to look this up, and by now I should have this burned into memory, but for some reason when it comes to quotes, I kind of like put my own little spin on them, whether that's a Freudian slip or I don't know, but I want to get this exactly correct. And I've said it a little bit before already, the obstacle is the way. It's a big kind of part of the philosophy that I live by and ever forward. It's also one of the names of one of my favorite books by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. Comes from Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers. And he has this quote that says, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And I think that couldn't be more timely now. We all are facing the same obstacle. That obstacle yields different things for different people, but bare bones, we all have the same obstacle before us. So how are we just going to choose to look at it and find that gift that is wrapped prettily, and just, instead of trying to just stop behind it and stay scared, instead of trying to run from it, learn from it and push through it, go forward.
I love that though. That little tiny shift, the way I'm going to start looking at things from that is probably going to change the trajectory of my future. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. This was incredible.
This has been great. Absolutely amazing. Look forward to having you again soon.